Welcome to Life by Design, where Dr. Alex Tam interviews real estate investors, delving into their experiences and insights. Get ready to uncover the secrets behind successful real estate investing and discover how it can shape your life.
Learning about the new market and how to analyze the numbers and look at the comps and due diligence and all that stuff. So that was the learning curve that I had to familiar myself with. All of a sudden, apartments investing, became the hottest thing in the market at the time. So, and then I started meeting some people online, talking about multifamily and partnership, and I started to explore all that. That's really what makes us smile every day, knowing that, like for me at least, when I go to bed at night and if I cross up some of the items on my to-do list, it makes me happy. For if I have somebody that I'm going to talk to, I'm going to encourage them to explore more of that, option, just so they can know like there's just so much more out there than just your science book or your history or your math or your English. There's just so much more out there.
Welcome to the Life by Design podcast through real estate investing. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Elsa Nguyen. You might have heard of her if you are in the multifamily space. Her story is truly inspiring on how she came to the US, didn't speak any English, to now being a real estate mogul, following her dreams, and really following joy. Well, thank you for showing up here, Elsa. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on here, Dr. Alex.
Yeah, so, your story is absolutely a very inspiring story with how you grew up and where you are right now. I see you at a lot of different conferences. Yes, you're at home right now, but you're also away as well.
Right.
Tell me more about how you even got started in real estate.
Wow, this is a very interesting question because how I got into multifamily is all by accident. So the very first syndication that I did back in 2018, I didn't even know it was a syndication. So all I knew was, and I don't know if I shared with you that story, that I wanted to develop. I wanted to get into development with this broker that works at the same company where I work at the time in Taro. And he was doing some land development. And I asked him, like, I really want to learn this business. Like, would you take me, can I shadow you?
Right.
And they say no. So,
They
long
said no.
story, they say no.
Come
They say
on.
they say you can come in as an investor, and then I'm like, you know what? Maybe I can learn that way. So I started my first investment with them in that company, and then a year passed by. They did other stuff, and they finally decided to allow me to shadow them. And then we did. They brought me in as the GP for that syndication. Now, the truth is that I had no idea what was a Fire 6B, Fire 6D at the time. I didn't know what SEC, what Reg D was. All I
Right.
knew was that, we bring a group of investors together. We give them a portion of the company, of the profit. We split the profit, and then we do this all under, we have an attorney put in the paperwork for us. And all we have to go do is just go out and ask if people want to do this with us. It was just very simple. I'm like, you know what, I can do this, right? I have a number background. I know how all this, all these numbers add up. So we put under the contract a piece of land. We were going to do a hotel deal there, a hotel entitlement project. And the numbers supported that. We bought this for $6.5 million. Once we exited with the site plan approval, we can exit for $12-13 million.
Wow.
And I'm like, man, this is such a sweet deal, right? It's a year of work. We're probably going to exit for $5 million. That was the end of 2019.
Okay.
Just keep
Yeah.
that in
4 years
mind.
ago.
And we got COVID, the quarantine, everything shut down in 2020. So we went out and we talked to investors and we raised $4.5 million to close on that deal. And that was really my first indication, and I didn't even know it.
Right.
Honestly,
You
I
didn't
did
even
not
know
know.
what was
I didn't
happening.
even know because I work alongside with that lady, and all I knew was that I just wanted to learn development. right?
Right.
So I did not know anything about SEC, 506C, and
Right.
all of that
Right.
stuff. And my partner was very strong in that area. I was strong with numbers. So I'm like, you do your thing, I'll
Okay.
do the numbers part.
Right.
So
That's how
long story
partnerships
short,
work.
exactly right. So when I got into multifamily, I paid to be in a mastermind to learn how to do the syndication properly. And then I look back, I'm like, holy crap, I already did this before. It's like, oh, I'm like this is exactly what I did last year, but
Yeah.
with a hotel deal, without even knowing
Wow.
that I did a 506C and raised $4.5 million for my first deal. So now, we're gonna
Before you even joined the mastermind.
before I joined a mastermind. And but multifamily, after that, I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is not as difficult as I thought it would be because I have
Hmm.
already experienced. Given that I have a number background, an accounting background, so it was very easy for me to maneuver through the numbers part.
Right.
Right.
Now,
And then I also have a real estate license, so talking to broker and negotiating it's come very natural for me.
okay.
So the only part that I needed to work on is to really familiar myself with all the rules and because we have to be in so much compliance when it's come to SEC and
Of
working with
course.
investors. So that was the part that I had to really educate myself on. And so I did spend a lot of time on that as well as the market research because now we were doing land development here in California, but now we go outside of California and buy apartment buildings. So there was a lot of the time effort that I would be spending on learning about the new market and how to analyze the numbers and look at the comms and due diligence and all that stuff. So that was the learning curve that I had to familiar myself with
Of
when I
course.
started doing this adventure, this journey.
Yeah. It's a big learning curve.
It was
I
a
think
big,
a
and
lot
it
of
still
people get,
is,
yeah,
it still is like we can be in this business like it's not a one-time learning, but it's an ongoing learning process for
especially
us.
when the market cycles continues to change that the way
Exactly,
that it is. You know,
exactly.
Elsa, bring me back before even you deciding to do development. When you were growing up, is that what you've always wanted to do growing up? Tell me about how you were in school, like in high school, college. What did you wanted to do? And how did that idea of development even come into realization?
Wow, that's a really good question. Um, I went to school and I majored in marketing.
Marketing.
Right. And I ended up getting an accounting job as my first job. Well, office manager. This was the dot-coms era. They have so many startup and everybody needed an office manager.
Right.
So I couldn't get a job in the marketing. I ended up getting a job as an office manager at one of the startup company. And as that company got bought out by a bigger company, I got continued to drop into the accounting bucket of the company.
Mm.
So I've actually had to learn accounting on the job. But my
Wow.
background, my
Was
degree
marketing.
was in marketing. And the reason I studied marketing, to be honest with you, because it was easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey,
It was so
that's okay.
easy.
No shame in that. All
Oh
right.
my God.
A
It's
lot
so
of us
easy.
younger, we want to pick the easiest way, through things.
Yes, it was easy and it was fun. And we didn't think we as immigrant, we were raised here teaching that you just need to go to school, finish college and get a job,
Right. That's like a
right? A
must
lot
do,
of
right?
us,
How old were you,
yeah,
by the way, when you came to the States?
13 years old.
13. Yeah, I
13,
was I
yeah.
was 8. So yeah, we're
Or
not too,
yeah,
yeah, few years difference. Yeah, about the same age.
exactly. So
Hmm.
that's what we did. We went to school, but for some reason marketing was very easy for me. It was fun and I liked doing it, right? But looking back as a child, what did when we play pretend when we were a
Yeah.
child, I always saw myself as being a businesswoman.
Okay.
So I didn't see
Okay.
myself being a doctor or a pharmacist, none of that. I saw myself being a businesswoman.
Where did that inspiration come from?
I have no idea. It was just something
Huh.
that, I feel like God planted something inside of us, and
Yeah.
everyone is wired differently. Um, so looking back, I'm like, yeah, maybe this is why I am on the path where I am right now, where a W-2 job, it was just wasn't satisfying anymore,
Right.
right? And so, going from how did I, so that was back in childhood into marketing degree, and then went back and get a master's degree also in business administration. And then I worked in accounting for a pretty prolonged period of time until 2015, 16, when I decided to, when you in deep down inside of you, like when you want to be a businesswoman, working for someone else does not fulfill you. And I think that's where I was. And the last job where I really quit was I was a controller for a structural engineering firm in Oakland, KPW. And it had a
Okay.
beautiful office, overlooking the financial district from the Jack London Square.
Yeah, of course.
Um, and you would think that would fulfill me, but it didn't, right? So
Yeah.
I took a leap of faith and I quit my job and I went to real estate full time. And I'm like, if I'm going to start a business, this is probably where I want to begin. So as soon as I get into real estate, and I was doing really well, just
What
given
were
that
you doing in real estate? Tell me.
I just buy and selling properties.
Okay.
I
Okay.
was an
Buy and
agent.
sell. You were an agent.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I started, I did both commercial and residentials.
Okay.
And then this is how the idea of development came to me. My commercial broker, Andrew, he was telling me also, I was like, I I don't know, but I feel like we need to do bigger stuff. I'm like, what do you mean
Aha.
bigger stuff, right? He go, I don't want to do leasing and selling anymore. And I know you and I, we can partner up. And he drove me around. He took me in his car and he drove me and he showed me building. And he go, I want to build that. I want to develop that. I'm like, how? I'm like,
Right.
this is just way beyond me.
Yeah. I don't even
And
know
I'm
how to
like,
start.
exactly. I'm like, Andrew, like, are you out of your mind? Like, how are we gonna find money to develop that building, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we don't have the skill set. And he go, no, no, don't worry about the money. Like, we'll find money. Like, people will give us money to do it. I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
Like
who would
who?
give us money? I'm like, Andrew, you're crazy, right? And they go, I'm not. Like, I know we can do development. I know. So that's how I got the idea was first planted in my mind when I was doing that. And it never really crossed my mind to go and dig deeper, but the idea was there, like development. It just sounded cool and big.
Yeah.
So in 2018,
That's a big word.
when that developer came to me, it was like, to me, it was a no-brainer. I jumped on it right away with the hope that I will learn how to do it from him. So I started investing as an LP in that. So then I'm like, this is what I pay to learn.
Yeah.
But had Andrew never planted that idea in me, I would probably be still selling and buying homes, right? Which I still am, but it's very, very small amount of time we're investors. And that idea, over a period of 2 or 3 years, it's just starting to open up one doors at a time. So when COVID came, the hospitality doors were closed,
Right.
and that's when I got into multifamily because all of a sudden apartments investing, became the hottest thing in the market at the time. So, and then I started meeting some people online talking about multifamily and partnership, and I started to explore all that. And, before I know it, I was doing multifamily full time.
Wow.
So,
What a
who knows
transition, huh?
what a transition, but everything happened very organically,
Right.
like
Right.
sometimes it's a small idea that planted without even us paying attention. And then that little seed keep growing over the years without even us knowing it. But by allowing ourselves to take the risk and the leap of faith and just keep an open mind, you just never know what kind of doors will open for us. And for all of
Yeah.
us
I think
listeners as well, right?
right. Right. I think that's huge because for it to be organic like that, it's it's absolutely different than someone who's trying to force it, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah. So
exactly.
how it happened for you organically? That's awesome. That's awesome. Now think about it. I think about it happened in such a short period of time, a few years, right? It's not a long time.
Right.
Imagine if, the difference that your life is now versus how it would have been if you never took that leap of faith in as the controller, right? Say if you stayed in that area, how do you think it changed your trajectory in life? Like say for the next 10 years. How do you think your life is different now?
That's a really good question, Alex. I think I would feel more, had I stayed in my 85 job, I would feel more secure. So definitely the sense of security, having that paycheck coming in every 2 weeks, having insurance coverage, having all of that, I will feel very safe. But I remember I didn't want to go to work when I woke. Like I hit the snooze, but I don't know how many times, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's Monday. I gotta go to work.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, you feel safe, you feel secured, but I was not happy.
Right.
I dread going to work, right? Like it's just a job. Like we do this for the money, but there almost no sense of joy in doing what we were doing.
Wow.
And that's the big difference. That's the big difference is that the path that I've chosen to live right now, it gives me and do I feel safe? Do I feel secure as have I with the path that I'm been on right now as compared to having a secure job? No, because every day, I mean, what we do is every day we have to deal with so many different. There's just so many things going on right now, right? And there's a lot of things that we cannot control. So, do I have that absolutely, sense of security other than my faith in my creator, like knowing that I'm called to this and he gonna lead, right, in the right path and he gonna provide. And that's the faith that I'm talking about. But knowing that I have control over that, we don't. We don't have control over the interest rate. We don't have control over the cap rate. We don't have
Right.
control over any of that. Tenant don't pay rent. We don't have control over that. Though we can mitigate that risk by, you know, before we get in a deal or like before we put a tenant in there, we screen them carefully. So we can do some work to mitigate that risk, but at the same time, real estate is risk, and there's a lot of things that we don't have control over as much as we want to have full control. But at the same time, it's like going on a roller coaster. It's fun, right?
It's the ride. That's how we go
It's
on, right?
right, right. So we just enjoy the ride, and then we do the best that we can to protect our assets, to protect our investors, capital and all of that, and we do our best to get to the other side. But it is the ride, and
Right.
I really think life, is a journey, and we gotta have to enjoy every part of that because we don't know. Like for me personally, I don't know if once I get to where I want to be, I'll be happy there. Most likely, like once we get there, we're gonna have a different goal, right? We're gonna have a different set of goals when we get to where we want right now, and
Yes.
then we're gonna have to continue working toward the next chapters.
And it's when you say when you get to your goal, would you be happy? I was just listening to a podcast from Ed Milet where he talked about the dopamine levels in our brain. And dopamine levels, the happy satisfaction hormone, ramps up as we are going through the journey.
Yeah,
But what they tested were when people actually reach their goal, their dopamine levels
go down.
completely plummet, and people fall into the depression of, well, what's next?
Yeah,
So having that,
exactly,
resetting the goal and continuously making it a journey is absolutely one of the key things, I believe, in
exactly,
striving for what you want to strive for. Now, talking about what you're
exactly.
striving for, when being Asian, growing up in a family where people are like, oh, you grow up and you go to school and have a secure job and everything, right? When you decided to quit as a controller and told people that you were going into real estate full time, did you get any pushbacks from it where people were like, oh my gosh, you already had a good job, why are you doing that?
Yeah, yeah. The biggest component were your family,
Yeah, yeah.
your
They're like the biggest
parents.
blockers, right? The parents.
It's the parents,
What did they
exactly.
say?
Well, probably, you and I on the same boat as this. They would just like look at us as if we're crazy. It's like,
Yeah,
why are you doing this, right? Like,
yeah,
you spend years of schooling to get to where you are right now, and then you just leave everything. And my parents, I mean, they are they they worry so much, and I don't know. I mean, I think parents in general, they worry. Asian parents are probably the worst at that.
yeah.
They,
They're the most critical. They worry. They always criticize you. You never get a compliment.
exactly, that 100% accurate. And I don't know, they ever stop worrying. Whether if and they probably had a little bit more peace when I was having my 8 to 5 job and
Yeah,
making a good amount of money. But that doesn't mean they stop worrying. But now it just make it worse. I'm like, Mom, Dad, like I keep telling them when we came to this country with empty hands, we all 6 of us cram into a 400 square foot apartment.
yeah.
None of us spoke any English,
Right,
and we survived. Like, how much more do you worry right now? Because we already have so much, you know,
right.
and you just need to learn how to put that fear away. Um, Worst case scenario, if everything fell, I just go back and get a job, right? So you don't. I have the skills. I have a MBA. It's not that hard for me to go get a job. So don't worry, right? And that's
Right.
what I tell them. But people forget their past. Sometimes all they see is like what's more for us, and they're starting to build up all these worries and fears. But we were never a day without food. Or I told them we were never sleep on the street. We never had a day that we don't have food to eat. We always had food. We always had a roof over our head. Like, don't worry, like you just have to rebuke the fear and just tell them to leave, because we just have to believe in ourselves, believe in, like you mentioned earlier, it's not about getting to getting, accomplish what we set out to do. Yes, we do, but the joy, and the what is in the process. That
Right.
joy, that what we live for is really in the process. Waking up every morning with a big to-do list,
Yeah.
but that's what we live for, right? And we just
Right.
check that off one at a time and continue to grind. And that's really what make us smile every day, knowing that, like for me at least, when I go to bed at night and if I cross up some of the items on my to-do list, it makes me happy. Right. And sometimes we just have to, and that's also when we sit back and be grateful. Like, oh my God, I have accomplished this and that. And that's when it put a smile on my face, knowing that, which sometimes we just have to stop and enjoy and appreciate what we have accomplished as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Does your how has this rubbed off? The real estate rubbed off on your kids at all, or do they?
Trying to,
Yeah.
they, I think they are very supportive of what I do.
Yeah.
And I try to teach them as much as I can about, financial literacy and all that. I make them read
Absolutely.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But at the same time, I think each person is wired differently, right? So I'm hoping my youngest one will probably have some of my business mindset, but the first two, I think they're more into like, Mom, I just want to get a job. I
Yeah.
don't want to do what you do. I just want to be like Dad. Like, I want to go to work and just go home and watch TV.
9 to 5. Once I get home, I don't want to think about anything else.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, because I don't even have a TV at home, and they don't like
Right.
that.
Right. Right. And that's the thing. It's not for everyone.
It's
And
not for everyone.
right.
Yeah.
I believe that a lot of people put entrepreneurship and real estate on a really like on a high horse on a totem pole, and then when they get into it, they didn't think it was what they thought it was going to be, because
Yeah.
everyone on social media shows all the fancy things, the conferences that they do, but they're not in your mind understanding you have to think about all the things that could go wrong that you have to mitigate
Exactly.
on a daily basis, right? Were there
Yeah.
some couple things where, or tell me the biggest thing, misconception when you went into real estate that you didn't think you need to work as hard as you did on it? Or did you going in knowing that it was going to be hard from the get-go?
I didn't know anything when I was going into this, right? Because when you study from the books, it's very different than when you're hands-on doing it.
Yeah.
So they're definitely, we make it look easy, Alex, as you know it, right?
Right. Yeah. People are like, oh yeah, you just, get investors and you get a deal. If you haven't,
Exactly.
people who haven't tried to get from LOI to closing a deal don't understand that process.
Oh my God, you're absolutely right. We make it look easy, but they don't know for example, right? Like this personal deal that I'm working on right now. And when I talk to investor, of course, you give them the big pictures. I'm buying this for $1 million. I'm putting 200,000 into
Right.
renovation. I'm going to sell it for 1.7 or 2. Kind of
Right.
that's the
Right.
ARV. It's only 10 properties. It's small, and they're 2017 built. Like how much work they're going to be, right? So we make it look super easy for them. But when I got into it, now we have to deal with squatter. We gotta get them out,
Oh
right?
God.
And then when they got out, they destroyed the property. Now we have to fix it up. Now we need to bring in an inspector, electrician. We need to work with PG&E. We need to work with the city. There's just a whole lot of work that involved in that process that investors don't know about. And that's why sometimes they're like, I want to be active. I don't want to be passive. Right? I want to do what you do. Okay.
You're like, are you sure? Come hang
Let
out
me
with me
show
for
you
a
some of
day.
the photos, right?
Right. Right.
Um, so that's what I didn't know, right? When I first got into the business, we were completely on the other side, right? But until you get your hands into it, then you learn. And every property, every deal that we do is different. Like
Yes.
there's no two deals that are the same. So
Right.
yet there are the experience curve that help a lot with us, in doing in how to get through it. But there are always new learning curve on every project that we work on. E- Every deal, I haven't seen two that are the same. And that's one of the excitement about, for me, it's exciting because not every day is different for us. I wait, even though we have a goal for the week, right? Even though we have a to-do list for the week, but not every day is different. So, and the new challenges that we face every day, we just don't know what it's going to be. So, to me, that's really fun and exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. For us, it's fun and exciting. For some people, it's like, oh, that's scary, and they don't ever want to touch it.
It is scary. It is scary. And then they're not wired for that. And that's totally okay. Then
Yeah.
some people are just not wired to face, those situations, and totally understandable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Elsa, you've accomplished so much in the last few years, right? Ever since 2019 when you first got into this. What does the next 4 to 5 years look like for you?
That's a really good question, Alex. I would imagine I would just continue on the journey that I'm on right now.
Right.
And at some point in time, I feel that I'm gonna go passive.
Okay.
I'll stay more on the passive side.
Yeah.
Um, but for now, the next 5 years, I will double down on, and I think the market is actually really good right now for buying. Just because, when people are pulling back, this is when we need to go in. So I think
Absolutely.
this year, the next couple of years, we're going to focus a lot on growing and acquisition. So we're going to grow our portfolio in the next few years, and then we're going to scale down after that. Like usually in our business model, at least for me, I do value add, and I do 3 to 5 years hold, maybe 7. It really
Yeah.
depends on the product. So that's what it's going to look like. So it's just going to be all in the next few years. And then the next phase, really it's hard to know where we are 3 years from now, but I know the next 1 or 3 years, we're going to focus a lot on acquisition and grow our portfolio. 3 years from now, I really don't know where the market going to be, but I know
Yeah.
there's going to be some selling. Are we going to reinvest that money, 1031 that into more apartments, investing or into triple net hospitality, we don't know. But I know real
Right.
estate will always be a part of that, right?
Absolutely.
And then I have a nonprofit, right? So a big part of what I'm doing right now is eventually I want to grow the nonprofit as well.
Oh,
And
what is your nonprofit about?
it's just helping, right now is very, very small because we
Okay.
kind of just building it up. I mean, over the years, I've always supported just poor people, right?
Yeah.
We sent money to orphanages, to senior housing, and just support them with foods and medical supplies and
Right.
just all that stuff. So I want to be able to grow that a little bit more. In the countries where it needed to be. I mean, where we came from, of course, I have people there, I have organization there that I work with, so I want to continue to grow that. But that doesn't mean it's limited to just Vietnam, right? We could go to Africa, we go to anywhere where we have the opportunity to. So that's my hope for the nonprofit within the next 5 to 10 years. Maybe, well, I want to make sure the nonprofit is where it's supposed to be first, right? And we continue to pour our profit into that to grow that. And then the nonprofit, eventually, I think the nonprofit will grow even more as we pour in the profit from invest now capital into the nonprofit organization, if that makes sense.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so that's kind of the vision that I have.
That's a
But
great
again,
vision.
I'm not the type of person who's like, I have to have it that way because I'm flexible and I move with it, and then we'll see wherever the door open. That's kind of
Yeah.
where I'm gonna be. So I'm gonna keep my eyes alert and make sure that if there's an opportunities there and I feel if it feels right, I'm definitely gonna be right there.
Awesome. Awesome. I wanted to end this with a couple of questions, personal questions. If you think back to when you were in college, when you first got your degree and just got that done, and if someone else was in your shoes, what advice would you give them, knowing what you know right now?
I that's a really good question. I would just advise them to explore outside. Just to me, I believe financial literacy is so important. Whether they learn that to, because I think that's one of the topics school don't really teach you.
Right.
That you
No,
have
no
accounting.
school
Hmm?
teaches you that. There's
No.
no high school, middle school, or a lot of colleges don't teach that.
Yeah, and I'm really surprised because I think that's such an important topic for students to learn how to manage the money, right? They
Right.
should learn how. There's accounting classes, there are finance classes, but it isn't designed for you. It's designed for career, right? Like you learn to
Right.
see that you can do all that when you go to work. But for your own financial literacy, like there is nothing like that to teach students how to invest, right? To teach students how to, and it's also self-help, self-help books. There's a lot. We have philosophy, we have all that classes, but there's nothing on self-improvement, which I find it to be like those are big for me now because that help us grow our mindset, right? Help us
Absolutely.
to see things life in a different angle. And that's what the college are missing. They don't really touch on those topics at all. So I feel
Right.
that coming out of college, we have a very narrow mindset, right?
We do.
This is always see. Um, so if I were to, go back to my old self, or if I have somebody that I'm going to talk to, I'm going to encourage them to explore more of that, option, just then they can know like this is so much more out there than just your science book or your history or your math or your English. This is so much more out there.
So much more in the world
Exactly.
to explore. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
Now the next question is, Elsa, when people first meet you, what are two misconceptions that they have about you when they first meet you?
Some of them tell me that uh, one of the guy I met in an elevator, and he go, "Why are you so happy?" Right? Because I always smile, and I go,
Yeah.
"Well." because I'm a happy person. And he go, well, you must fake it. I'm like, I don't know you. Why would I fake my joy? Right? I
Right.
don't know who you are, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that
Right.
this is just me. So I guess that's probably one of the first misconception is that my joy is not real, so I'm faking it. And again, that's their problem. Like, whatever you think,
Right.
it's none of my business.
Right.
So that's probably one of it. And then the second is, maybe because what I do, what we do, it does involve a lot of money, right? And just being an immigrant, and I do look a lot younger than my age. I'm 46 years old right now. So a lot of people like, you don't have the experience to be able to manage all that. You just tell me, right? So I think that's probably the second misconception when they meet me is that they, like I've heard some when I went to conferences and I met some people and they did make some comments that it just until they found out like, oh wow, so you have a pretty substantial portfolio, so their attitude changed, right?
Yeah.
I won't mention what they say or bring up names, but I think those are probably the most misconception when I meet people, is that maybe I don't have that mature look enough to be able to do what I'm doing,
Right.
or that maybe I'm just faking it. So
Yeah. I mean, it's when you go into a conference, especially now that is male dominant, right?
yeah,
In real estate, very male dominant.
very.
Most of the people for the longest time, for decades, have been Caucasian, right? We're going in as immigrants, right? And they see us as young and maybe not as experienced as well.
Exactly.
And they could a lot of times get that stereotype right off the bat, you
100%.
know?
Yeah.
And
Especially if
it's
you are a woman too.
right, right, as a female going in as well. So no, I could
Yeah.
definitely see that. I can definitely see that. But it also allows us to, knowing how that feels, to not put the same idea on other people as well. It's like, hey, you got
Correct.
to give people a chance. Not everyone. You can't judge the book by its cover, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, but at the same time, that's what they've experienced in the past.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. No, that's awesome. Elsa, thank you so much for sharing what you've shared and really opening your heart and being transparent with us, telling us about your past, how you got to where you are right now, and the successes that you have currently. For other inspiring real estate investors, maybe other females, immigrants who want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Thank you so much, Dr. Alex. Once again, just thank you for your time being on your podcast today. I just had a great time, and you definitely asked some very in-depth questions, which I almost didn't prepare for. So, anyways, that was really good. I have a website called investnowcapital.com. So,
Awesome.
I got my email and information on the website. So, investnowcapital.com, or I
On
will be on LinkedIn, on Facebook as well. Elsa Nguyen. Just look for Elsa Nguyen. I'll come up.
Awesome. Awesome. Well,
Yes.
thank you so much, Elsa. I'll put that information in the descriptions below, and we'll see you at the next call or next conference.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah, we do. I don't know what's the next one that you go into, but I look forward to seeing you in person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Elsa, thank you so much for your time. Have a great
Thank
day.
you, and you too. Have a great rest of the week.
So if you enjoy Elsa's podcast, make sure you click here and here. And if you want to learn more about her and what she stands for and what her multifamily space is like, or about her nonprofit, click the links below. We'll see you next time.